Chef Greg, I got a few questions for you, okay? I've been dying to ask a Puerto Rican chef que wears a Puerto Rican hat, got cuatros in the background, got a flag. Olvídate, you represent. Okay. Okay, here we go. Ready? Pastelillo de guayaba, ¿con queso o sin queso?
Sin queso.
Thank you. Oh my God. Where the church
sin queso.
When they put queso in that, yo me pongo tan malo. Why you putting queso, man? I said guayaba. I don't need queso. You know what? Use that space and put more guayaba. Okay.
That's it.
Pasteles. ¿Con ketchup o sin ketchup?
Con ketchup.
This is my man, yo.
We know you.
I'm booking you.
There you go, you know.
For these funerals, getting letters for lyrics, a bonus as per usual. Usual suspects, roughnecks and juveniles can get a fresh pot. All they spots still removable. I'm cooking always. Shook one, see this crooked hallways. Start tucking all they jewelry. I'm ruthless all day. So get a load of the bad guy. Samurai sharp darts, leave your ship capsized. Plan fly off the handle, cross the damn sky. Pan fry your noodles. Google told me use a damn lie. And I come from a cloth cut different. Y'all high scrounging up for a dust mission. Back to your grill again, live at the barbecue. How I could just kill a man. Sawed off shotgun, hand on a pump. What punks jump up to get beat down? Slump kiss. Back to your grill again, live at the barbecue. How I could just kill a man. Sawed off shotgun, hand on a pump. What punks jump up to get beat down? Slump kiss. Hollywood burn, I smell a riot going on. Them boys is drawn, the toys are drawn. So we loading up the minivan, looking for the bags, paying no mind to the city man. Philly city plan, really gritty and gotta kill a man. If it gets a famous shit, hit the ceiling fan. What's the deal, my man? Why you grilling? You a Steelers fan? Don't make me call my old regime on my still again. Showing off skill again, back to rebuild again. Streams hit a mill again, ill like Billy Lamb. We killing them, special like Ed when I'm taxing them. Bro, I got it made grade A like 3 stacks in them. Back to back I win, Cadillac, I'm on a track with rim.
Welcome back to Bomba Live with your host, Ray Collazo. Thank you so much for joining us. Please share out this very special World Baseball Classic Bomba edition. This is for your real baseball fans and people that just love the spirit of this tournament. For a lot of us, we were waiting for a long time. We were little kids for this opportunity. Now we are blessed to have the 5th edition of the World Baseball Classic. Thank you so much for joining Bomba Live, the talk show you've been waiting for your whole life. In this special edition of the show, you're going to hear experts, analysis, and super fans representing Team USA, República Dominicana, Puerto Rico, Venezuela, Mexico, and mucho más. Please share this out with your friends, especially the sports fan in your life. I know my Puerto Rican family, my Dominican fan, my just fans of the friends of the Stars and Stripes and fans of just this beautiful game are excited for these games that actually have started in Asia, and we're going to get updates about some of the games and some of the surprising results that we've already had in the World Baseball Classic. I want to thank the intro music from my youngest brother, Mario Collazo, a.k.a. Planetary from Outer Space, the Army of the Pharaohs crew. Check out his new music on YouTube. I know people are jamming, nodding their head to Get Slumped, his newest, hottest track. So just excited. Please share this out with your friends. Comment. We're going to include people's commentary in the chat, and we're going to have a lot of fun here. And I couldn't do the World Baseball Classic special without my two co-hosts for this evening. First of all, let's bring him on, my Dominican compadre, Jorge Martinez. What's up, Jorge? I mean, we've been waiting for this 6 years, brother.
Oh, we've been talking about this. We had this conversation in college, hypothetically, how we could pull this off, but how the world has changed. Back then, for DR to be competitive against the U.S. juggernaut, we had to break up the U.S. into like either class or like region, because we were like, it's too good. We can't compete against them. To the world where we live today, where it's like, wow, we are like toe to toe.
No doubt. Before we bring in our other co-host and our first of many special guests and baseball ballers, share with us that picture behind you and specifically the picture right above your head there on the screen.
Awesome. Yeah. So I did a little dedication picture. I must say, I had a first. My Twitter handle is dr USA Baller. So I did have a little torn on like how do I represent the USA? Been born in this great country, but when it comes to baseball, you got to be Dominican at heart. You got to go with your heart. You got to go where you came from.
It's like Brazilians. Everyone's Dominican in the baseball context. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. So the where it works is and in the upper corner you have Juan Marichal, the first Dominican in the Baseball Hall of Fame. And then moving over on the top, on the next to him on the top, all the way in the other corner is Vladimir Guerrero Sr. We would hope we had Vlad Jr. in the game, but we won't this year. In the bottom, as a Yankee fan, I have to kind of suck it up and put DR first for this one here. We got the two other Hall of Famers. We got Pedro Martinez and Big Papi David Ortiz. But the most important one is up at the top in the middle, and that's the man who brought me to this country, gave me life. That is my father. Played in the minors for 10 years in the U.S., played for El Escogido in Dominican Republic, and also was represented the DR for volleyball in the Pan Am Games that were held in Chicago in '59. So Hall of Famer in my heart for always and forever. So he gets top billing right above my head.
No question about it, and I'm sure Antolio Martinez, when we come up, there's another country that he has a special baseball relationship with. I'm sure that's going to come up in the conversation later when we talk about some of the other nations representing. And Antolio is an uncle to my family and a dear member of our family. I want to bring on the man he's kind of like the Joe Lenardi of the crew, kind of like the world WBC classicology expert, El Baseball Yoda, Michael Collazo. What's up, Mike?
Yeah, good evening, gentlemen.
Unlike
I'm
Baby
good,
Yoda,
I'm looking forward
unlike
to
Baby
going.
Yoda, who's very needy, you're very self-sufficient.
Yes.
Baseball Yoda.
I try my best. Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
I know, Mike. You're going to
Yes,
break
sir.
down all
We've
the
been waiting a
teams'
while,
cards.
man.
6 years. You didn't have any
Absolutely.
facial hair in between before this.
That's
Before
correct.
This
I
long
was clean
wait.
shaven back.
in
That's
27.
correct. That's correct.
That's right. Well, let's
Yeah.
bring on our
That's
first
great.
of many guests. You're going to break down a bunch of teams for us in a minute, Mike. But let's bring on the first of many special guests. This man is really elevating the presence and the awareness from the major leagues to the youth level of African Americans in the great state of baseball. Not only the history, but the current and the future of African Americans in the great game. And so we're so proud to have him talk about Team USA and everything he's up to from the Black Baseball Mixtape. Mark, hey, Chief, what's up, Chief?
Gentlemen, Ray, it's a pleasure. It's an honor. Jorge and Michael, it's an honor to be on with y'all. I love everything you're doing. I'm excited, man. I'm excited about baseball, and I'm excited about the World Baseball Classic.
Cheats knows his stuff, and I told him, I said, this is kind of like, a nice nights at a round table, so people know what they're talking about with baseball from different perspectives, but our interests and our cultures and what we're about overlap a lot. So we're happy to have you here. Before we get into your analysis, Cheats, Mike, you're our bracketology expert when it comes to the WBC. Break down this Team USA for us.
Yeah, so Team USA, as Jorge mentioned, man, when we were kids, a fictitious national team was pretty tough. And reigning champions, obviously, the last time they played this tournament. But this year in Pool C, along with Mexico, Colombia, Canada, and Great Britain, still a tremendous lineup, including Mike Trout, first time he's played in World Baseball Classic. And the rest of the American stars, Mookie Betts and the like. A lot of analysts would like some of their starting pitching, though. I think people are thinking the Dominican, really starting with Sandy Alcantara, might have the best rotation in this very short tournament. But indeed, Team USA, a tough out. And I'd be curious to hear all of you guys, your analysis on what we're going to see from Team USA in a pretty difficult pool and a star-studded lineup, though. I guess a potential weakness could be in a short tournament, maybe the depth of starting pitching compared to maybe other clubs in there.
I know the Dominican baller, we're going to bring him back in a second to part of the conversation with Cheats, but that's something that he's keeping his eye on in terms of like how you organize a roster for a short tournament like this. Cheats, let's start with this. What does Team USA's participation in this year's World Baseball Classic not only mean for Team USA fans, but the Black baseball mixtape family?
It means a lot. It means a lot, and I'll tell you, in particular, having players like Tim Anderson, Cedric Mullen, and Mookie Betts on this team, and along with Devin Williams, means so much for what we're doing at the Black Baseball Mixtape. Because if we're trying to look at the best players, best American-born players in the country, representing their nation on a team, let's not kid ourselves. When you talk about kind of what's happened in basketball and some of the other sports, some of the best players don't even play. This is the majority of the best players in America, and you're representing a team that has 4 prominent African Americans on it. So first and foremost, as a Black fan, I'm excited about that, and as a fan of Team USA, I'm excited about the potential they have. The baseball Yoda said it perfectly. We're in a very, very tough pool. The USA is expected to make it out of the pool, but it is really going to come down to pitching. You guys are experienced baseball guys. You know, hot arms like goalies in hockey. A hot goalie can take you to the playoffs. Hot arms can take you there. Everyone can hit, but can everyone pitch? And that's where I'm concerned a little bit about how Team USA is going to stack up.
What Cheats, what do you think? You just kind of hitting at it, but give me a key. What as a Team USA fan, what's one of the keys? What's a key the fans that are kind of just trying to get their settled around this the tournament that they should be looking at as it relates to checking out the potential success for Team USA?
I mean, it's going to be with the bats, right? So, and you mentioned it. It's going to start with Mike Trout. Mike Trout is the catalyst. Let's not kid ourselves. Mike Trout is the catalyst of Team USA. He's the captain. He was the first person that signed on. And because he signed on, that's when Bryce Harper said he wanted to play. Unfortunately, he's hurt. Mookie Betts said he wanted to play because Mike Trout was playing. So I think we're going to look at players like Mike Trout, Mookie Betts, Paul Goldschmidt, who was on the last WBC team, Arenado at third base. We're going to be looking Trey Turner. The keys for Team USA, and trust me, they played 2 exhibition games. In the first exhibition game against the Giants this week, they only put up 1 run. They lost to the Giants in a spring training exhibition game with basically what we think is their starting lineup because they only put up 1 run. So I think the key here is I think the bats will come around. It's still a little early for everyone, but can Adam Wainwright, can some of the Lance Lynn, can some of these other pitchers get to the bullpen? So Jorge was just talking about pitching. Where I think Team USA is really strong is in the back half of that rotation. They've got really strong relief pitchers, but do they have the arms that are going to get them there so we can turn it over to Devin Williams and Pressey and some of the other players?
Oh, I think I heard my name, so I'm going to jump in on that. And what we were talking about was pregame. We had a little talk about this, and the key is, Rafael alluded to it, is in such a short series. Let's first of all, it's still spring training. So all of these stars, and I know for the DR team, we talked about Sandy Alcantara, NL Cy Young player, award winner. That's all great. We talked about Adam Wainwright for the U.S. The reality is these guys are going to pitch probably like 3 innings. 4 is a stretch. Like these guys are $1 million arms. No major league team is going to see these guys pitch 6 or 7 innings. A lot of this is going to be for show. It's great and all. So your key is just like you talked about. What's the middle relief? What are these names that you don't recognize maybe to get to these back of the bullpen? Those are going to be the keys. Yes, if your starters can get through with 30, 40 pitches, get through like 2 or 3 innings quick, maybe they can go deeper. But you know how some of these guys work. It'll be tough. So that's the key, man. When you look at these teams, is what are these names that you may not jump out at you, right? Where's the Miles Mikolas going to be doing for this team? Like, what are some of these middle of the road guys going to be doing? Some guys I'm like, hey, who's Brooks Raley? Like, what is these guys? They may not be names you call, but those are going to be the key, that glue. And in these short series, you alluded to it, that 1-0 score, that's probably going to be it, man. Like the U.S. has a lot of good names in there, but are they going to be able to link them together to get the offense going? So it's that middle relief. It's very interesting to see that.
Absolutely, Jorge. I think you're exactly right. And the good thing is, if you're a Team USA fan, between Devin Williams and Ryan Presley, you probably have the best relief tandem, and could be all of the tournament. These guys are maybe not well-known guys in regards to barbershop conversation, but they are filthy. They are very, very good back half pitchers, all-stars in that sense. And I do think if we can get to some of those guys. Now, the other question that we all have to kind of see how Mark DeRosa, the manager, is going to play this out is, how often do you use those guys? Is Williams going to pitch on a back-to-back? Probably not, right, Jorge?
Yeah, probably not.
It's like, unless, depending on how many batters they're facing and what the stakes are, right? As we get closer, hopefully Team USA and the Dominican team, because I want to see it, right? I want to see them get out of pool play. I want to see them get down to Miami, and I want to see when it really starts to get in that environment and the games really start to matter. Does it flip to a little bit more like a football World Cup where they really are playing? I'm with you. I don't think anybody goes 6 or 7 innings deep, but those managers, Mark DeRozan and those other managers, are going to have to make some real decisions. Like, do we put in some of our big guns in back-to-back games, or 1 day rest or something like that?
I think the other comment I would have about the USA team, just looking at the roster, is, I mean, although we have like a Pete Alonso, a Mookie, I'm not going to say Mookie Betts, a Pete Alonso, Mike Trout, there's a lot of guys with speed and like contact. It's a good, well-balanced lineup. Like, when I look at the fact that you got like Cedric Mullins on this team, Trey Turner, Tim Anderson, you got a lot of different types of ballers in. So I do appreciate the way the USA put together this team in the era of like, either it's a home run or a strikeout. There's a good mix of players in here. Like, there was some thought put into how this team was put together.
Absolutely. You really can't overstate that Bryce Harper got hurt. Like, Bryce Harper was like number 2 or 3 that signed up on this team. It was Mike Trout, Bryce Harper, Mookie Betts. But exactly what you mentioned, we have Cedric Mullins, who will probably be seeing a lot of bench time, to be honest with you. Tim Anderson, who will probably be seeing a lot of bench time because Trey Turner is probably going to start at shortstop.
Right now,
you've got Bobby Witt Jr., who's the youngest player on Team USA, who's got wheels as well, right? So they've got players that they can platoon in, and everybody's heard this by now, and especially if you're following closely, Mookie Betts is going to play second base. There's going to be a lot of Mookie at second base on this particular team, so they can get Kyle Tucker in the lineup in the outfield and do a lot of different things. So this team is constructed in a way that's almost a combination of what we see with our best. Like, usually when we talk about Team USAs, we usually talk about one of two things. Are these the best players that can possibly play? Or did we make a national team that kind of fits pieces, right? This is a little combination of both. This particular Team USA has some of the undoubtedly best players in all of baseball, especially that our country can offer up. And they've got holes that they can fill. If they need a pinch runner, they got it. They need a pinch hitter with power, they've got it. It all goes back to, do they have the arms? And I think we're going to ask that for every WBC team.
No, very, very, very good point. I think Rafael alluded to it, but and maybe you can call it out. I do like the mix of the team, and this is something that has nothing to do with sort of like the athletic part or how good they're going to be. And this wasn't considering to it, but it does really represent America. So you have a Nolan Arenado on there, the African Americans on there, considering the diminished number overall in the league. The number actually on this team is probably higher representation.
We're overrepresented.
Absolutely. So I think that's a beautiful thing about the team. And again, I do think it was based on the merit and what the pieces fit. But when it came together, it's kind of a nice thing, the way it came together in terms of like how it represents the country as well.
I'll go you one further, because I had the privilege of having Tony Regans, who is the GM of Team USA on the Black Baseball Mixtape, and he is the fifth ever African American to ever be named a GM. He was the GM of the Angels in 2007. He drafted Mike Trout, so that was where the relationship started. But Tony Regans actually leads the development. He's the chief baseball development officer for Major League Baseball. And I think they made a really conscious effort, not just with the team construction, but the coaches construction as well. If you look at Jerry Manuel's the coach on this team, Ken Griffey Jr. is the coach on this team. They've got Michael Young's, like, they have made this an effort to be representative of the country. So it's something to be really proud of.
And cheats. Let's this is amongst fam, right? We all know Jerry Manuel was really the brain of the operation. You know what I'm saying? Mark was just there to
DeRozan's never managed before.
He'd do interviews, slick back his hair, and Jorge, there's nothing to do with Columbia Penn hate. You know what I mean? The Penn hate on the brother. But we all know who's really in charge here. Cheats, real quick before we get your prediction, what are you hoping as really one of the leaders of this movement at Black Baseball Mixtape to promote and support the presence of African Americans in baseball? What are you hoping to get out of this tournament in terms of not just how these stars can be elevated? Because look, one of the sad things about baseball nowadays is to Jorge's point, it's as diverse as ever in some ways, and there's still some incredible African American stars that American sports fans just don't know enough about and appreciate. So what is your hope to this opportunity for some of these players and just the presence of African Americans in baseball for American baseball fans?
I really just think to get people excited. None of us are kidding ourselves here. The World Baseball Classic, for what it's worth, is still for diehards. I mean, it may be in the Dominican, it might be a common thing, right? In Korea, it's a common thing. In the USA, it's diehards. So we need to make sure that people see the excitement of the game, make sure they know the game's not boring. And also, while they're doing that, see that we have some really talented players that look like me, that look like you, that look like everybody that's playing.
That's right. Shout out to is he still a Yankee? Kyle Ishioka. So we have an Asian American brother on the squad. So we have a very diverse team. So yeah, no doubt. Gotta represent for him. It was interesting to see Lars Newbar, a couple of Asian American players playing in the Asian tournament.
It was a lifelong dream of his too.
Oh yeah, how two Brooklyn Puerto Ricans got on the Netherlands, the Palacio brothers. I'm still trying to figure that out. But anyway, it's 23andMe is an incredible thing. Let people know before we get to the next segment. We're gonna Cheat. You're gonna stay on because we want your thoughts about this Dominican Republic Dream Team as well. We're really proud to have you. But before we get to the next segment, let people know a little bit about Black Baseball Mixtape.
Thank you. I appreciate you having me on. I appreciate you asking. Black Baseball Mixtape only started. It's only just over 6 months old, and we started it as a fan. I live in Richmond, Virginia, and I'm a lifelong fan of baseball. And every year, like all of us, we see the numbers that Major League Baseball, Black participation in Major League Baseball is down to 7%. This year, we had no Black players actively playing in the World Series. We had no Black players on the 40-man roster for the Philadelphia Phillies for the first time in 63 years. So I was seeing these numbers and saying, what can we do to just be helpful, just to be a friend of the game, to be helpful and let Black people know that there is a outlet where you can see some of the stuff that I was looking for that I could never see. And that's interviews with players, interviews with coaches. We've had MLB officials. We've just been really, really fortunate over a very short amount of time to promote the game in a way that I feel is contemporary, the kind of the content that I want to see, and it's been a blessing, and we're gonna just keep it going as long as we can and make it happen. But it's been it's been really gratifying in a very short amount of time that I have people message me saying, "Hey, I've been looking for a place like this," and I was like, I was too, and that's why we started building a community together.
Well, Cheats, you got some fans here. We support what you're doing. Your movement, 1,000%. And as we all get to know each other, you realize, how much of a passion this is for me, my brother Mike, some Alex, who's going to be on in a second, Jorge, and our network of friends. And baseball is such a and one of the things we should continue to go in each other's programs to talk about the history of our shared history with baseball. And I'll share with you really quickly that my grandfather, who's really the reason we're such baseball fanatics, Don Rafael Collazo, he grew up literally in the shadows of one of the Winter League teams in Puerto Rico. And when he was a little kid, he was not only watching the great Latin American players of the day, but the Negro League players. So his first exposure to baseball as a small child was, Willard Brown, Josh Gibson, the legendary names we can go into. So there's a lot of shared history here. I want to let people know before we get into, I know my Quisqueyanos are waiting for us to talk about Dominican Republic. We're going to talk about that in a second. But I want to let people know that El Baseball Yoda, not just a baseball guy, but he's an entrepreneur. And I want to thank him for sponsoring this special episode of the World Baseball Classic, Bomba episode of Bomba Live. Open Seat Direct helps event organizers sell tickets, get paid instantly, and eliminate junk fees. Are you planning an event, need to sell tickets? With Open Seat Direct, promote like a pro. You get fan info and get paid fast. Go to OpenSeatDirect.com and sign up for free or save $20 when you enter promo code OSD20 at checkout. OpenSeatDirect.com. Mike, if you're a promoter doing events, it's a must view to check out OpenSeatDirect.com.
Yeah, absolutely. Event organizers of all kinds, everything from nightclub venue, promoter on high end, thousands of people, to independent comedian has 20, 30 people in the house, people doing free events, getting a list of volunteers for nonprofits, from fundraising galas to having people register for free for their events. So it's a great value, easy subscription-based model, nice and affordable, no fees, money goes directly to your PayPal or Stripe account. So we're trying to help the independent organizer cost-effectively get the job done selling tickets.
Mira, I had the honor of meeting Bernie at the barbershop. We share the same barber in New York. And my barber was like, yeah, man, I know Bernie, Bernie comes by all the time. I'm like, Bernie Williams does not come by. You crazy, man. That's Bernie Williams, man. That's 51, dog. You know Bernie Williams? That's Bernie Williams. Pasa por aquí todo rato. Bernie pasa. Wasn't Bernie here a couple of weeks ago? Yeah, man, Bernie was here. I said, you got to stop lying, man. My Bernie Williams is not going to come by this little barbershop, please. And I swear to you, in through the door comes Bernie Williams. and normally I'm picky about the cut. I'm like, get off. That's Bernie Williams. Pero he was so, like normal, chill. Hey, how are you, man? Hey, you busy? I'm like, Papa, I'll get off the chair right now. You can have it.
No question about it. Welcome back to the World Baseball Classic Bomba edition. Bomba Live, the show you've been waiting for, the talk show you've been waiting for your entire life. There's your host, Ray Collazo. And of course, that was the legendary, well, first of all, many legends, well, at least 3 legends were in that clip. Of course, Luis Roberto Clemente was in that clip. A few years ago, Cheats had the opportunity, the blessing of bestowing the Doña Vera Clemente, the widow, who recently passed away a few years ago, of the late, great Roberto Clemente, with the Doña Vera Clemente Bomba Live Award, live on the show. So, of course, another legend, Puerto Rico baseball legend, Yankee legend, legendary figure for many reasons, Bernie Williams, who was gracious of this award. Of course, another legend, Eli Castro, great stand-up comedian. They have the same barber in Jorge's beloved borough of the Bronx. So we're going to get now into Jorge's squad, the dream team, the real dream team here. The rest of us are messing around. La República Dominicana, Santo Domingo, Dominican Republic. Jorge, before we get to your team, Mike, give us a quick breakdown on this incredible team that's going to be leading not just a great team, but the pool of death, Pool D in WBC.
Yeah, indeed. So I would argue Pool D is the toughest of the pools in this World Baseball Classic. So you have a former champion, and arguably, I think Jeff Passan of ESPN argued this Dominican Republic team might be the best lineup in baseball history, not just this Classic or another major league team. That's pretty high praise, even without Vlad Jr., who was injured recently, obviously, and had to skip the Classic. But in a pool, not only with Venezuela, which obviously has a ton of talent, Puerto Rico, who's been a runner-up twice, with guys, of course, like Francisco Lindor, Javi Baez, and the like, and major league players are both on teams like Israel and Nicaragua. So they're certainly the underdogs, but they have a few players, needless to say. So I can imagine, Jorge, any Dominican I ever talked to about this team, they're thinking it's all about, will we gel? Will we play together? Will we do the little things to win a close game? But I'd be curious to hear what your worries are, since there's no question DR's a favorite.
I worry about Miami.
Okay, so you worry about Mansion. You worry about Mansion on a Saturday.
Is this the Memphis Grizzlies fear? Is this the Memphis Grizzlies theory?
I mean, I believe it happened while we were in the 90s. There was a Caribbean World Series that was held like in Puerto Rico.
And Puerto Rico's told me about that, dog.
And they flew over to DR like after games. Like they were just hanging out. They were balling. I mean, I think we've come a long way. Just social media, the attention that this gets. These guys know what it takes. They know the heat that they're going to get if they don't perform. I mean, that was a Caribbean series that was probably, you would have to there was no internet. You'd have to really watch the show. Like, if they mess this up, people are going to know. There's a lot of pride in this. You've seen the videos, you shared it on TikTok and Twitter. There's a lot of trash talking already happened amongst teammates. They know what they're going to have to face if they come home. So yeah, gelling is a lot of it. I called that out before for the other teams. Again, great names. Javier, Alcantara, still Johnny Cueto seems to still be around. I feel like he's been around forever. A lot of great names. So I have no problems with all of that. But it's going to be key is like, there's a lot of good arms too as well. And even in the back end of the bullpen. So there's a lot of good stuff happening there.
Yeah.
Hitting, it's so tough when it's such a short series. What's going to happen with these hitting? A lot of great hitters. But the world that we live in today, there is not a lot of, contact happening, a lot of swinging and missing. So I wonder how they'll play it. They got a lot of good speed. They have the ability to manufacture some runs. Would they actually go through with that? I mean, that would be the key in a short series. Would they go through with that? Or are we going to play megastar that I can hit it out? I could be the man. If everybody on this team tries to be the man, that'll be the problem. If everybody on the team is guys going to hit the home run and win the game, that's going to be the problem. If you're going to be the guy who kind of maybe hits the other way, move a little run every now and then, you need that in these short series. I know that baseball and the analytics doesn't play that, but in these kind of over the long course of a season, that's where analytics really matters. When you look at the probability of stuff over 162 games, yes, you play for that. But in a short series, you kind of have to play for the 1 or 2 runs. And I wonder if this team will do that sometimes.
Let's keep the conversation going about Team Dominican Republic with el licenciado de Bomba Live, former major league agent, and just an incredible Dominican super fan and a great friend to the show, our licenciado, Alex Sepulveda. Alex, can you see us? Can you hear us? Take 2. Alex is down in Miami. He's trying to give us a live report. Hold on. Let's see. Alex, can you hear us?
He's there.
Can you hear us, Alex? Can you hear us, Alex? I guess not. Let's bring Cheats back on here. Cheats, talk to us about this Team Dominican Republic. I know it's an impressive squad.
It's too impressive. It's outright scary. And I don't care what anybody says. If you don't think the DR is the odds-on favorite to win, you're sandbagging. They are a murderer's row from 1 through 9, and they've got pitching. I am so excited to see them play. I want to. My thing is, and I think everybody's right, because they're gonna love Miami. They're gonna love Miami, but Miami's gonna love them. Make no mistake, they're gonna be a hometown crowd. The excitement's gonna be at peak level, and I think they're gonna embrace the moment. They're gonna suck it up, and they're going to, hit some balls that may never land. I can't wait. I'm so excited to see the DR play.
But I think the other key thing is it'll be interesting. We always bring it up. Defense always comes up every now and then. So in the Caribbean World Series, the DR team, first game of that series, blew a game that they should complete upset. Robinson Cano, love it. I'm a Yankee fan. Love Robinson Cano.
He got a hold of one the other day. Yeah,
if this guy sees the field, we have a problem. If this guy sees the field, we have a problem. Nelson Cruz, GM, love Nelson Cruz. Should not be playing much. Like, these guys are honorary captains. Let's keep them in their place. Let's put them in a mantle, but let's not have anything depend on these guys coming through. With all due respect. So that's going to be definitely a key. I think the other one, though, is when you're this big a favorite, is do you choke a little bit? Like, what happens when a game gets 6-6? Oh, here we go, Alex. We got you, man?
So I got it now.
All right.
Oh,
I'm gonna get off my horse. I want to give you your time. We went from
No, thank you very much, guys. Sorry about that.
No problem. We were basically preaching. At this point, it's not even talking about how good DR is. It's about how do you think it could go wrong? Because that's all you can think about. Like, how could it go wrong? Like, let's just figure out where it could go wrong.
I'm not happy at all with the catching position. I know that Gary Sanchez is a pass ball waiting to happen. I actually like the backup, and I also like the kid on the Orioles that they were thinking about bringing also, but I guess he's the third string.
You should have traded a Puerto Rican catcher for pitching.
Yes, we should have.
But let me second that. I didn't get to that. Like Gary Sanchez shouldn't see the field either, but unfortunately, based on name, he will see the field.
The kid Mejia is very good.
Yes. We don't need a bat. You need a guy who's going to be back there and you
need a
can
guy
trust.
who can catch. And then the Vlad Guerrero situation going down. Now, they're trying Cano and maybe Rafael Devers.
That's the one I would have picked. Yeah, go ahead, man.
I'll pick up a glove. And then they bought the kid Candelario, but I mean, he's a bench guy, He's a bench guy now.
Yeah. But I'm willing. Here's my thing. I think you need one or two of the bench guys who are just going to do their thing. Like I would actually start Candelaria, and I wouldn't start Sanchez. I would start Mejia, because you don't need all 9 guys. Sometimes you need guys who are just going to be solid at what they do.
Correct.
And not be on the name reputation.
Alex, I think you hit it on the head, though. Health. That may be the one thing that can stop the DR is health, because Vlad Jr. already did something. If they have a couple of more injuries, that might be the thing that slows them down. But I laugh, I chuckle because you guys are complaining about an embarrassment of riches. You have an embarrassment of riches, and you're trying to find ways. You're trying to find ways to see how the embarrassment of riches could go wrong. Already in Miami, Garrett. Come on.
Alex, I need the first hand on that. You might have missed that. My number one problem is Miami. Will Miami bring them down? Will there be a little bit too much partying in Miami that could bring this team down?
The favorite team is USA, so I don't know why everyone's going crazy about this.
Alex, cut this out. Cut this out.
You're trying to tell me the favorite team is not the USA?
The favorite team is the Dominican Republic.
No.
Followed by Japan, then USA, I would say third. But Venezuela is very scrappy.
Venezuela is very
strong. So I'm going DR, Japan, USA, Venezuela. Those are my power rankings.
The only thing that I see DR over Venezuela is the pitching. But that Venezuela lineup is sick.
Yeah. It's going to be fun to watch.
Kind of card is.
This is my question for the Dominican ballers. Rodney Linares, the manager, and I'm glad they picked a non-sexy pick to be the manager. Rodney deserves the opportunity. He's got a tough job, obviously, with all these superstars, and and it's like coaching a whole football team of wide receiver divas. It's tough, but the other thing is his boss is on the bench as a DH, Nelson Cruz, Montecristi guy, Jorge. So how's Rodney going to calibrate playing Nelson and with some of the roster moves? Because not only did Nelson pick himself to be on the team, he picked everyone else to be on this team.
Yeah, that's always going to be. Like I said at the beginning, I'll say it again. Nelson Cruz and Robinson Cano, those are just like mantelpieces. Like if those guys see anything near this field, we in trouble. Like that is I will repeat that again. Like, that is a problem. That is a problem.
But I take it to another level, because you're going to be, he's going to have so much pressure to play people that to the point about cheats with Mookie Betts playing second, you're going to see Ketel Marte all over the place. You're going to see Wander Franco playing left one day. And, pitching and defense. And specifically, Alex, I'm with you on the catcher. I was watching Taiwan, Panama the other day, and the Panamanian coach figured out that, hold on, this Taiwan catcher got a noodle arm. And he was like, he literally didn't even care if they hurt him. Just run. It didn't matter. So the defense, and it's baseball, these little, y'all have, of course, incredible roster. But it's the little things. That's the thing I'm worried about for y'all.
And I threw this name out to you a couple of years ago because I saw him in winter ball when my dad was watching a bunch of games at home. But Jeremy Pena better be playing. All right. Like I don't really care about some of these other big names. Jeremy Pena better be playing, bro. I don't care. He's the young boy, but he better be playing.
Franco's gonna play. Pena's gonna play. They gotta play. They're gonna play. Their lineup is amazing.
Alex, let's get your prediction, Baba. What do we think? So two questions. How's the Dominican Republic going to do? And if you don't think they're winning the championship, who's going to win this whole thing?
The winner for the whole thing will be the USA.
Ooh. I like that. Sandbagging. My man sandbagging. So sandbagging.
The USA will win the whole thing. Venezuela will go far. DR will go far.
Okay.
I will
Semifinals
give
for
you.
DR, are you saying? They'll be in Miami
But
9 days?
yes,
Okay. All right. All
I
right.
will give you one thing though. Being in the pool of death, will the
USA.
U.S. will DR have to play their arms too much? Will they have to kind of play
right.
too many tough games where you have to burn through some arms? Because again, if you play some good games and you blow those arms, they're not going to pitch as much in the next round because those teams aren't going to let them pitch that much. And I mean, when the U.S. is playing Great Britain in their round, I'm like, what's going on here? So that is definitely a factor on how much U.S. DR gets to have to play close games in the first round.
No question about it. Well, Alex, enjoy Miami. Keep the
Thank you.
social media going. We're going to have a lot of
Listen,
FOMO. You know, just enjoy it for all of us, brother.
another person that you guys didn't mention that has no business being there is Miguel Cabrera.
Damn, that's it. Well, our
That's
Venezuelan correspondent.
We'll get
you
to
can
that,
ask him what he
Venezuela.
thinks about that. We're
Remind
going
me
to talk
never.
Venezuela in a minute.
Remind me never to play spades with Alex because I know what's gonna happen. I know what's gonna happen.
Never.
He's gonna hoard all the books.
No question about it. Alex, enjoy it down there. Keep the social media going. We're going to be in
Yes,
touch.
sir.
You know how much
Yes, sir.
we
Thank
care about you, brother,
Always
and
a
it's going to be a
pleasure.
lot of fun. And keep Mike out of trouble. I know we're not going to talk about Syracuse basketball right now, but keep Mike out of trouble because you know he's going to be a little down because it's the end of the orange era.
Yeah. Well, it's unfortunately it was time. And I'm happy Adrian Autry got a Harlem boy guy I grew up with.
No doubt. Good guy.
So, you know, it's with the NIL, this college basketball thing is so different. Is who can we pay to come to our school out in the open?
Alex Cheats, thank you for being here. You're always welcome. Jorge's going to come back in a little bit. After this quick commercial break, it's time to talk about my Star and Stripes. Global Rico, I got to take back control a little bit. Thank you all so much. We'll be right back on Bomba Live.
Thanks.
I know, because listen, a mí me dieron mucho de la chancleta y la correa. I was not a well-behaved child.
Oh, who you telling? A mí me sacaron del parque jugando basketball a chancletazo limpio.
There you go.
And I had one of those typical moms que te decía, te dije que llegara a las 7 de la noche.
Exactly.
Ahora, súbete para arriba. And every time she mentioned a word, there was a chancletazo with that one behind it.
That's right.
Welcome back to Bomba Live, the show you've been waiting for your whole life. There's the World Baseball Classic Bomba Edition. Hey, I love my Dominican fam, of course. Cheats. It was wonderful to have Cheats on. But, the owner and founder of Bomba Live, whatever. We're trying here. So, we got to give ourselves a segment, and we couldn't do this without Puerto Rican sports super fan. And, all these ballers talk a good game, but she actually lives the lyrics, is the true baller of this conversation, a star player of the Puerto Rican national women's field hockey team, Julia Rivera. What's up, Julia? Nice. What's going on?
How's it going? Excited to be here y representando las mujeres después de ayer.
Very nice. The day after International Women's Day. Very appropriate here. We're going to talk about another famous Puerto Rican woman in a second. That's going to be part of this mix that you and I were texting about the other day. Mike, as the baseball Yoda, I know you've been literally waiting 6 years to break down the analysis of the 2023 version of Team Puerto Rico.
Indeed. So once again, in Pool D, Los Boricuas, Los Rubios, in basically the toughest pools we mentioned before. You have to get through Venezuela, Dominican Republic. That's a tough trip this time around. No question, the strength is up the middle. So obviously, Francisco Lindor, Javi Baez, Cristian Vázquez, Machete, the catcher. They have two major league quality catchers. Will probably play one at first a much of the time. And then two quality MLB starters, Marcus Stroman, Jose Berrios. And then from there, they got to be creative. Head coach, former catching star of this national team, Yadier Molina, is going to be key. How does he manage the bullpen? He does have a major league quality bullpen, no question, with the Diaz brothers in particular. And I think that's a potential key. I'd love to hear Julia's thoughts on this team and potentially the matchups they're going to have in Miami. The first, just coming out the gate against eventually playing Venezuela on Sunday, and then eventually the Dominican Republic next week.
Sure, yeah. So Team Rubio, first and foremost, is back. So with that spirit, who knows what can happen. So excited to see what happens starting on Saturday. It is going to be a challenge to get out of Pool D, no doubt. But I think, the team this year is set up with some big names. And as Ray was saying, if they get some of the little things right, I think, they have a chance, despite what some of my predecessors in the last segment may have been claiming about getting out of Pool D. I believe in Team Rubio, and we'll see what happens. And, we have on Saturday, Marcus Stroman, who will be our starting pitcher on the mound, now playing for Puerto Rico after back in 2017, being on the mound, playing against us for USA. So that's going to be an interesting dynamic. But I think he's excited, representing his mother, who's from Puerto Rico, and ready to get into that ambiente and that environment in Miami that I think is going to be really fun to watch.
One of the beautiful things about Team Puerto Rico is, and we know we're talented, but we're not the most talented team. It's obvious. It's some of the big titans, a couple titans. But what's so beautiful about it is that we win tactically. We could talk about the catching in a second, Mike, and Yadier Molina's role, different role now, but very important. Is that the bottom line is where it's the players, the coaches, the legends that just sort of support the team. Alex Cora, it's very obvious, is involved in sort of the backroom mastermind of this operation, and the fans. And that's the most important thing. We are all in. And so I've stepped out of my comfort zone to let people know that I am all in for Team Rubio this year. This year. So let me tell you something, Julia. We did the best we could. This is definitely out of my comfort zone. I don't have one piercing on this body. I don't have a tattoo ink on it. I mean, nothing. This is, so we got to be all in.
Very impressive.
We got to be all in.
That's it.
They're running out of bleach and hair dye, from what I understand, on the island. So everybody's into it. If I didn't have a big gala next weekend, I might have had to jump on board too.
We got to be all in. There's no question about it. I wanted to ask you both, actually, Julia and Michael, that the coaching is interesting because, look, I mean, besides, the unity, and we have some good players, the reason this team has done well has been Yadier Molina's probably is the simplest way to describe it. Not only his leadership and his play, but, managing kind of mediocre, we've gotten better, but, mediocre to sort of average pitching rosters. Now as the coach, how do you think that comes into play? Julia, what do you think as Yadier Molina as manager?
Yeah, I mean, first and foremost, he brings a lot of personality and flair to the game, which I think, a lot of players will appreciate. We'll see if he can keep his cool. I know back in Venezuela when he was managing, he got tossed quite a few times. So we'll see how that happens. The other thing, I think the good news for Team Puerto Rico is we have two really strong catchers replacing Molina with, Machete Maldonado behind the plate. He can really manage pitchers well. I know he just is coming off of a World Series season. Dusty has said in the past that having him on the field is almost like having a manager playing in the game. So he's going to be a huge asset for us as well.
Mike, every team has, Monty Perez chiming in. He's excited for the WBC. Always great to see Monty. Every team has attrition. You could argue the Dominican starters that weren't able to make it would be the strongest rotation in this whole series, to be honest with you. But with the loss of in this sense of Carlos Correa, Jose Miranda, who I think is actually a big loss as well, and the Seth Lugos and a few other players. So talk to me, Mike, about this roster in terms of like with the talent that's available. Give people a key in terms of things to look out for, and maybe something you're worried about as it relates to, because there are a few holes in this lineup.
Yeah, right? I would say first off, my algorithm. Yes, I'd say first off, my algorithm, no question, was very upset that the Minnesota Twins organization, which has arguably, I think, the most Puerto Rican players on the 40-man roster, yet Correa doesn't come and Miranda was held back. So I've seen my algorithm is not happy with the
He's
Twins
hurt and he's hitting bombs all over spring
roster.
Training. It's like, come on, he's not that hurt. He's had a great spring training. He's runs all over the place.
Exactly. So I think that a couple things. So Puerto Rico's run up twice. And I think part of it was, even though the talent, the names on the marquee wasn't what other clubs had, but pieces fit. Their infield was very strong. As you mentioned, Molina was the catcher and was doing a tremendous job managing these short starts and bullpen pieces coming in after the fact. They fit enough where most people could play their position defensively, and could win. They were versatile enough where they could win these short series games. I think a key, no question, is you still have some of that element with, Baez and Lindor up the middle. Their outfield's going to be Kike and some other guys that maybe the passive Major League Baseball fan doesn't know, but these are at least professional quality, Major League quality guys. And then I think most importantly, Molina's used to being behind home plate, managing a game through his starting staff and through his bullpen. So I think a key for Puerto Rico is going to be how all teams, there are going to, even if you have Sandy Alcantara or Shohei Ohtani, none of these people are going to pitch, 9-inning shutouts. They're going to be limited in their pitch count. They're going to be limited how many innings they take part in. So everyone's going to get 4 or 5 of their best, starter. So what do you do to manage from the 4th, 5th inning on through the 9th and beyond potentially? And Puerto Rico does have depth. The strength they have, I would argue, is really the bullpen, because they have several average and way above average Major League arms coming out of there. So Yadier can sort of, play chess in that regard. He can get Berrios or Stroman through 4 or 5 roughly. And then once he sees a matchup, he can, bring in an Alex Claudio against the lefty. He can bring Azulca early if he wants to in the 7th or 8th in a big spot. He can do Alexis's brother. He has other guys that either can pitch the first round or beyond, depending on the situation. So I think that's going to be a big key. How does he manage that, knowing that that's his strength probably, and knowing that probably you have to eke out potentially, let's say, particularly against Venezuela, you're going to have to eke out, maybe a low-scoring game or stay, in front of that, really tough lineup. In a very difficult pool. I mean, there's no question, only 2 come out. So if you have Venezuela and DR in front of you, on top of, all these teams have pro players. Israel has professional players, Nicaragua has a couple major players. So
much respect to Nicaragua.
Slip up,
one of the things
if you slip up one game, could be a problem. So
Nicaragua keeps me up at night, because they're our first game. It's the first game, and Nicaragua, they have nothing to lose. They've never been in this tournament. Quiet. They're going to throw the kitchen sink at us. They know they're like, their best chance of doing anything is that first win. So they and Jonathan Loaizaga, one of Jorge's buddies from the Yankees. I mean, they have some talent, and I'm glad Nicaragua is getting some love. They have a great baseball tradition, and I think one of the things this tournament's going to show is that some of the Asian countries, which are wonderful. I love their culture. I love the flair. I'm up at 5 a.m. watching all this stuff. I think it's fantastic, but they're a little overrated in this context. I think some of the lower tier Latin American countries are a little underrated, and I think Panama, Nicaragua, and Colombia are going to show that. Julia, give us another key that you're going to be looking for Team Puerto Rico.
Well, I think again, one thing that you were mentioning, the small ball and the defense. So can Lindor, Baez, really stay strong on the defense and have some spectacular plays like they have in the past. We don't necessarily have power hitting. We're not DR and the US, but can we steal bases? Can we take some extra bases? Those little things. I think Lindor and Baez and Edmago, Javi have to produce. We'll see how our pitching is. And one thing we haven't mentioned is Sugar Diaz, best closer in MLB. That's a huge asset that Puerto Rico has that I think can't be underestimated. So those are a couple of things we got to keep an eye out. And it's one game. Anything can happen. As Lindor said, you put on that jersey. It's one game. You feel the stands. It feels like a game 7 every game. So we'll see what happens.
And Jorge Lopez, who was a fantastic stopper last year, and the people know his personal story. What he had to, what his child has overcome, and we root for that brother. One of our cousins in Puerto Rico works out with him in the off season. He's a trainer, and that's it's odd because you don't think of Puerto Rico for pitching, but our bullpen has actually been the strength of Puerto Rican baseball the last several years. Julia, before we get into your prediction, you and I I wanted to share a chat you and I had recently that get your analysis, because the social scene in Miami is going to be off the chain the next few days.
Yes.
So there's a party tonight, and then there's a party after the DRPR game. So the question for you is, if you had to choose, would you go to Wednesday night's party featuring Joely Randy, or Would you want to be in Miami tonight, rocking it with the woman who's making moves in the game? Young Miko is going to be kicking off the World Baseball Classic. Mentirosa Thursday at Live down in Miami. So Julia, the social scene is going to be as popping for Puerto Ricans as the games.
It sure is. I mean, anybody who's in Miami, it's going to be whether you're in the stadium at the game, that environment, and then outside with these artists. You know, Puerto Rican artists nowadays are, you know, top notch and get everybody in the spirit. So I think it's going to be a lot of fun playing as a fan anywhere in Miami. I'm jealous of any folks that are able to take it all in.
Julia, give me your prediction. What do you think we're going to do?
So I think we are in the pool of death. It's tough, but I see us getting out of the pool. I think quarterfinals, we'll see. It's going to be tough, you know, potentially facing the U.S. in that round. So I don't know, but I believe in us getting out of the pool of death at least.
Well, and who do we knock out? Who do you think does not make it? That's the question.
Venezuela. I think DR.
Wow, nice setup for the next guest.
Yes.
Julia, you feel free to stick around. We're gonna take a very quick break, and then we're gonna bring some sophistication into the building. The South American Titans have nothing to say. All you Caribbean people, all your flash, all your stuff. The South Americans have come here to keep us straight. More from Julia and the rest of our baseball experts here on the World Baseball Bomba edition of Bomba Live, the talk show you've been waiting for your whole life. There's great artists, and I'll just say kind of in the rap world, just for example, there's great artists that are great in the genre. Then there's special artists, the truly greats, that move the culture and move their fan base forward with them. So Bad Bunny is not just like the best in the game, but he's changing the game. Because what I think, to your point, Tanya, what this album is doing, his new music is doing, is maturing his audience. And he's pushing us to go along on his personal journey and his artistic journey. So y'all need to catch up. And I think about like Jay-Z. Jay-Z was wearing basketball jerseys. So everybody wore basketball jerseys. Then one day Jay-Z, as my brother would share his perspectives, he's wearing, suits, and now he's a business guy and he's about flossing, and then everybody changed their game and it became like a different thing. So the truly greats, we have to move with them. Prince was that way. He was always challenged. Welcome back to Bomba Live, the World Baseball Classic Bomba edition of Bomba Live. Thank you so much for joining us. As I shared a moment ago, we had to, again, bring sophistication into this conversation. And I want to introduce a great friend to the show. And I'm really happy because, we get so focused on Puerto Rico and DR, but I wanted to make sure we had, the other big dog in the room when we're having this conversation. Who better than a great friend to the show to represent La Vino Tinto and a suave brother, man. Fernando Javier Torres is with us. Fernando, buenas noches.
Hey, buenas noches. I'm going to have to talk to Julia that she thinks she's going to knock down Puerto Rico.
We're actually doing this here, brother. That's kind of the point of this conversation, brother. But it's so great to have you, brother. Well, we're back here with the Dominican baller, Jorge Martinez, who I'm sure, has something to say, has some questions for you. And, of course, El Baseball Yoda. Mike, give us a quick breakdown thumbnail on one of the Titans, brother. Definitely a contender for the whole thing. Team Venezuela.
Absolutely. So, tremendous ball club from Jose Altuve y todo, Pablo Lopez, Jesus Luzardo, Martin Perez. The starting staff, you could argue, is one of the deepest in the tournament. Not a Sandy Alcantara level ace, but really solid arms. Salvi Perez, the veteran. And then, of course, the big names, Arraiz, Altuve, Escobar, Jimenez in particular, who you could argue is the best second baseman in baseball at this point. So Dominican gets talked a lot about. Team USA, rightfully so. Puerto Rico's had some. Japan is a favorite. Venezuela could easily make a run and go all the way and stay in Miami to win the thing. I'm curious, Fernando, your views on what you see in it. We're coming at from the other side, worried about Dominican having a bad game and the catching, and Puerto Rico worried about just offensively being to hang with you. But what's your concern as people fly into Miami for Pool D?
Concerns? None. That's not concerns. The team has a the thing that I see for this team right now is they have chemistry, which Venezuela has not have. Usually, previous tournaments, they come in all rusty. They just come in like, what do you got to do? Cabrera, when he got started to come players and coming in, they told him to come ready. With La Serie del Caribe from Venezuela, so we have something going up. The team is Miami is Little Caracas now, so we got it going, right? It's no longer just a Cuban city. I think the Venezuelans slowly taking over that city. So the excitement, and we have some great players. I think I'll say player by player, might not be the best at every position, but collectively, this is a very impressive Venezuelan team from pitching in the infield. I really don't know if anybody else have a better infield. And to the point that Altuve might have to bat DH because might not be a spot for him in the infield. So that's what excites me too. The infield is what it could be a big deal. The only thing that also really worry me is this tournament is so short, and it's at the beginning of the season, right? It's not even the season start. These two tournaments should be in the future All-Star break. Make the All-Star break a week and a half, and squeeze the tournament in between. That way, it's really the best of the best. So, and I haven't taken a look at how many players play Winter Bowl, but those are going to be the teams that have a little advantage if any players come out of the Winter Bowl. So,
I would agree. You're kind of warmed up, right, Jorge?
No, I was going to say, and that's the reason why the Asian teams always play better than ours. Like, it is in the middle of their season. They are already up and going, and that's why they always kind of get started on us. Actually, I wanted to start with a funny thing. At the end I don't know if you got a chance to see, but at the end of the Dominican segment, out of nowhere, I was talking about Dominican players who really shouldn't be on the team. They're just there for name. And Alex Sepulveda, on his last parting words, was like, oh, forget about all that. How's Miguel Cabrera on that Venezuelan team? I was like, oh, and that came out of nowhere. What's your feeling, Fernando? Is that hey, as long as he doesn't see the field, it's okay. We need him for like leadership. Just he deserves it. But let's not make sure he doesn't get on the field and like ruin this for us. Is that kind of your feel on that? How's your take?
I think that's the feeling everybody. He's the leader of the team, right? So I think he's just gonna carry the younger guys and gotta say, look, he's played every World Classic, so he has a little experience that he knows how bad we have done. We only come out number 3 once, and with the talent that has been throughout the years. So I think that's why he's there for. Once in a while, they might do a little DH on him, but I think he's there just because he had to make phone calls to get everybody, hey, you guys got to come in and play. I don't think he gave options to many people, and now I'm glad that Acuña's coming in. His son seems to be healthy. And then Altuve. As a Phillies fan, I hate him with passion, but as a Venezuelan, oh my God, he's a hero. He's growing up, it wasn't Omar Vizquel guy.
Fernando, your Altuve is Arlene Dorr, as Puerto Rican Phillies fan.
Now question, I'm a Yankee fan, so Gleyber, does he play? Where does he play? How do you fit Gleyber Torres in there at this point in his career?
I don't know. I think that's the problem. It's been a short tournament. I think they're going to try to squeeze here and there. Whoever is playing a little better. I think yesterday was good. Beating the Astros is always a good thing, and it's funny to see Altuve actually playing against his team. It's like he has never played a professional game against the Astros, right? So it was kind of good to see, and I didn't see the end of the Mets Venezuela game, but I saw that Altuve hit a home run, so that's good. Anytime the Mets get beat up, it's always a good thing to celebrate too.
Absolutely, I agree.
As a New Yorker, it doesn't matter to me. I'm a Yankee fan, so that's all good. Well, that's awesome. I want to ask you. We're talking about the World Baseball Classic, but in Venezuela, how's baseball doing? Considering all things that are going on, it felt like in Venezuela, Major League Baseball was almost cutting back on investments, given everything that's going on for a little stuff. It felt like baseball was going down. Is that still the feel? How's it looking like from a Venezuelan perspective?
So from the family, I haven't been there in a while. The family that I got there is a lot less than they used to be. So they used to be all the schools. The Yankees had an amazing school down there. Everybody had school. The Phillies, they had a great schools. Now they had to set back because of the danger. How do you send scouts over there? So the limit of the talent that can go there to find talent has been very limited. So I think that's been the problem through it. The pandemic, I think, affected everybody, but the fear that we got right now is the sport has lost momentum, not just in the U.S. I think the sport is going down even in Venezuela. Our soccer team tried to do good in the early 2010s, and now it's back to be bad, but So that took away from the team. They took away, hey, the soccer team is starting to do better and better. We had some good players that went to Europe. So I think there's a balance. They just opened 2 stadiums. The 2 stadiums actually look like major league stadiums. The question is, the Venezuelan people have the money to actually go to those games. But the country is still really bad when it comes to the danger, the situation, the dictatorship, to the point that I don't know if Major League is willing to send Americans there to scout. So I think that's what the gap is going to be. Yes, there are going to be Venezuelan scouts, Puerto Rican scouts, Dominican scouts, somebody else. And I know Puerto Ricans and Americans, but they're Latinos, right? So they have a different say. It's a little bit safer when you have to speak the language. So I don't know how many things. Hopefully the school's coming back up again. I heard some noise out there. The Yankees are really getting serious again and really open a full school again. But also the odd piece is also historically back in the day, 80s and 90s, they didn't pull the kid at 14 and 15 years. They let him mature more over there before you get him over here. Like, you bring him here and they don't have a support system. So that's why not many are making it through all the way through, I think.
That's a very good point. It's a factory system. But you're right. That's the big advantage that DR has had. Just the way the dollar translates to you, the U.S. can invest in there, make the dollar stretch. The same thing would have applied in Venezuela. What the DR advantage is this political stability right now.
Yep.
They run stuff. They can do whatever they want, and it's pulling it. And if you ever watch the movie Sugar, I mean, it is a puppy mill. There, guys get pulled in when they're 13, 14. We hear about the ones that make it, but there's a lot who don't get any education and just get thrown out the system, and that it is what it is. And but yeah, there's a great things about the academies, and there's a lot of evils to it. But yeah, so it's good to hear about. I mean, I saw that the Caribbean Series is Venezuela. There's still some love there, but I do worry about that next generation. There's so many great players. Is there going to be that gap? And unfortunately, once the gap creates, it's hard to come back. But you know what? The positive is, and we can bring back Ray and Mike. I felt the same about Puerto Rico for a while there, where there was a real gap. It felt like the love for baseball was dying, and I see some of it coming back. The Winter League came back in Puerto Rico. So I'm holding out that the same plays out in Venezuela, that, things improve. I mean, there are bigger things than baseball that we have to worry about. And so I'm going to put that in perspective. I don't want to lose that. But from a baseball perspective, I also hope that things mature better there as well.
Well, it's interesting, Jorge, because the politics come into play with this conversation. And Fernando, I did have a question related to that with the team as a follow-up to Jorge's question. But, when they included Puerto Rican, 2 things that happened that kind of simultaneously culturally. The island became more urbanized. So, kids kind of gravitated for cultural reasons, kind of more to basketball as more of an urban sport. And Puerto Ricans got included in the Major League Draft, which actually made them less appealing because they weren't going to be cheaper than the other Americans, like the Dominicans and Venezuelan players. But then the other thing is that self-sufficiency. So Carlos Beltran and that generation of players have basically maintained and grown an infrastructure to a more of a high school, more academically friendly, system in Puerto Rico that promotes these players and set up sort of a pipeline to some of the prep schools in Florida. So it's interesting how a previous generation of Puerto Rican players have kind of kept it alive in many ways. And those are the same people that are keeping the Winter League alive and blah, blah. Fernando, I did want to tell you, sort of piggybacking on Jorge's question, how do the politics affect this team? I remember a time when, there were divisions in the locker room around, who supported the regime and who didn't. And that there was almost like an antagonistic thing with some of the fan base for a time. So it seems like there's more unity this time. So I wonder how the political climate in the country it seems to not be affecting the team this much as in previous years.
Well, I think the difference in previous years, the opposition of political situation in Venezuela was a lot more active. Right now, they got pretty much dismantled by the dictatorship. So there's no noise out there. I mean, you don't see it in the news anywhere, whether it's Spanish media or the U.S. media is not there because the opposition's not there. So the situation you normally would have got a few years ago, especially in 2017, it was more real. Right now, there is no path for this dictatorship to come in. So it's no longer a situation right now. We hope in a couple of years the opposition can get back, rattle up for hopefully going back towards democracy. So I think in the near term, I don't think it's there. And I think, what's the name, manager Omar Lopez, he knows baseball. He's been in baseball his whole life. He knows how to get the players in there. And I think that's one of the reasons Cabrera is there. Cabrera is there to get everybody in shape. And him and Altuve, they are the leaders, right? What they say goes in that team, right? And so I think I don't think the politics are going to get involved right now because the Venezuela situation politically is not active right now.
And for the fans out there, this is what really matters in such a short series is how these guys come together. Because that is, we talked about, but I don't think it's going to happen, but the downfall for a Dominican team is where you just play superstar and where the team dynamics fall off. And in baseball, although it feels like baseball is there's only one man in the batter's box, there's only one man on the pitching mound, there is a sort of a team dynamic. There is a little bit of sacrifice. There's something you got to do there. So that's important. It's good to hear that from the Venezuelan team. I do think that DR, they may fall for other reasons. I don't think it'll be for that one. But that's always something that has to be key, the chemistry factor there. And, if you just go out there, thinking that I'm only going to have 4 at-bats and that's all I got to worry about, swinging at the ball 4 times, then that's going to be the downfall to your team. So good to hear that the Venezuelan team has an upswing on that. But I guess the last question I had, is there a name on here that we should think about that maybe fans aren't jumping on? Like we know Cabrera, Altuve, even if Gleyber's not playing, we know the Gleybers of the world. Is there a name out there that people should be kind of paying attention to from Venezuela?
This might sound really odd, but I really think who's going to win this is going to be the manager, how he plays this team. Watch him play this team. Watch it just rotate the infields. It's a short game. I don't think analytics is important. I think somebody was saying earlier in the segments, analytics is out of the window. I mean, you only got no starting pitcher is going to do 6 innings, right? Like if somebody's not there, major league team is going to be calling that manager. And it's like, what the hell are you doing? I'm recalling this guy now, right? So I really think it's how quickly you can make the switches on the pitchers. Pitchers are going to pitch 2-3 innings. That means they can almost pitch back-to-back dates, right? So they're going to be. Ranger just pitched yesterday. I'm pretty sure he could pitch on Saturday. So, there's several players in there. For me, Ranger Suarez, if he has a good thing, or I think he could have a 2-3 starts, or who knows? They might put him in the closer. I love Ranger, so I'm a Philly fan. So it's just
us too. Yeah, as a Phillies fan, he's a winner. Like he doesn't care. He can. It didn't matter playoffs or big games. He pitches as if it were like a high school game. He's just such a strong-minded guy. It's
just with passion. So I really think that's why he's going to bring some of that chemistry. He's important in the bullpen. He's like, look, if he's going to have to do a reliever, he'll be a reliever, right? He's going to be a closer. He's going to be a closer. So I really think that the key here is how the team gets managed. Every other Venezuelan team in these classics have been very poorly managed because they thought talent wins it all. They thought talent is like, just go there, do whatever you want. No. Maybe there will be time to play small ball, although I doubt it because there's a lot of good bats in Venezuela this time around. But there's also a lot of speed. So one person getting base, let's go crazy. The one thing I don't know is, do you guys know, is the new rules are going to apply for the Classic, the bigger base?
Great question. Awesome this is
it's
a grandfathered tournament that what baseball is a pitch clock and the like is not existing in this tournament. We will have the extra innings, guy on second base sort of environment, but it won't be a pitch clock. It'll be old rules, let's say. So that would be a little bit different dynamic. No, but it's a good point in terms of let's say a pitcher is a little more of a slow working delivery sort of pitcher vis-a-vis a quick. In a pitch clock environment, they might have felt rushed in adjusting to that 20-second, 15-second clock. In this case, they can just go as if, nothing's happening. So that'll be, I think, an interesting dynamic that we're not seeing in spring training and eventually in the regular season.
This happens every time we have the World Baseball Classic, is that we get closer. We start looking at the Venezuelan roster and like, oh my God, there's so many great Venezuelan players. We haven't even talked about Salvador Perez, a future Hall of Famer. Yeah. Acuna, I think when he's healthy, I think he's the best player in baseball. That's my opinion. When he's right, he's and one of the most fun guys to watch. Luis, who now plays in Miami, Arraez.
Luis Arraez is
the best contact hitter, the Rod Carew of the era,
right?
In a lot of ways, right? So just so many great talents. Fernando, we want you to stick around for the next segment, but give us a quick prediction of Venezuela, and then Mike's going to give us an update on somebody. The tournament's already started, so we need a for Pool A and B, some of the Asian games taken out in Asia the last few days. But Fernando, give us a prediction on how you think Venezuela is going to do.
So I think out of the pool is going to be Dominican and Venezuela come through. Sorry, Julio, if you're still listening. I don't see Puerto Rico, but again, you never know. I think Dominican is an amazing team. That's going to be the scary part. Is whoever wins that game, that's the final basically for this tournament. What I don't know, I didn't check on the pools. That could be the final. I think the way it breaks, they could come back at the final.
Yeah, they could come back together. That's right.
I think that will be an amazing final. And the key is going to be who gets the USA in the second round. So whoever gets the USA. US has an easy way out through it, but that's always scary when if you think you're easy, that always can get you, right? But so
the Venezuela Puerto Rico thing, all I have to say is Weechi, which is a deep.
I was there in
yes,
2013.
Yes,
I was there in person.
Yes, you were. Mike, Fernando, please stick around for the next segment. Mike's going to give us an update on, again, some of these games have already started. Mike, keep us up to date on what's going on in Pool A and B.
Yeah, let's start with Pool A. So that's in Taichung, Taiwan. It's been fascinating, really, out the jump because on two ends. So we could say Netherlands is 2-0, but it's really Curaçao, Aruba. It's really Curaçao's and a few Arubans, essentially, on the roster. So it's a Caribbean favorite. Playing great, Didi Gregorius playing first base. Xander Bogaerts, the star on the roster. So they've come out 2-0. The disappointment or the surprise, let's say, of that pool, Cuba being 0-2. Someone had mentioned how you can have a lineup like the Dominican Republic, but what about your defense? So if you'd watched, Cuba play early in this tournament, because Joanny Cepeda is playing left field, he sort of missed what could have been a catchable ball, and that kind of opened the floodgates for their loss against Italy. And now they're 0-2 and, virtually on the way out of the tournament already, despite actually for the first time having MLB guys outside of Cuba play for the national team. Italy 1-0, they just won. Mike Piazza, the coach. Matt Harvey pitched their first game. That's a blast from the past for Mets fans in particular. Panama's 1-1 and certainly has a chance to get out of that pool. They have a pretty decent roster, some major league arms, and certainly have a chance to get out as Cuba's 0-2. Then with Pool B, we've already seen an interesting upset. So Pool B is in Tokyo. Arguably the best team in this tournament. Japan is already 1-0, Shohei Ohtani and company. But Australia with a big win, an upset against Korea, a Korea team that many would have saw would come out of this pool, already a loss against the Aussies. So a big win for them. And then China and Czech Republic sort of round out that pool. But Japan is no question a favorite. Korea, if they can recover from being 0-1, will be interesting if they get out of Pool B. And as always, stay up late, get up early, watch the great pools out in the Far East, a region of the world that loves baseball like we do.
Oh man, to watch the games in Taiwan, even though I don't think their team's very good, but I mean the fervor of the team, the games in Taiwan and Japan has been fantastic. Yeah. I love the flavor, the culture, the pageantry,
it's awesome.
The music, it's fantastic. And I think this, again, as I said earlier, I think this tournament's going to show, as wonderful as the Asian teams are and the culture of the game, and a lot of great. Ohtani is just like dominated China the other day, or this morning. That those lower tier Latin American countries, the Panamas. I mean, like you said, the Netherlands is really the Dutch Caribbean, in essence, and I think Colombia, who's going to be playing in the pool with the United States. We're going to talk about Pool C in a second. I think they're going to show something for people, and hopefully Nicaragua shows something, but not against us. I want to share before we bring on our next analyst and continue the conversation. This we don't have a Cuban analyst today, but they're with us in spirit. Nisam Leon, the Cuban Lions, kind of our go-to for all things Cuban sports. His father, Humberto Leon, who's really the padrino of our Cuban family here at the Bomba Life community, is not feeling well. So we just want to give our love and our blessings and spirits and prayers to the great Humberto Leon, a passionate Cuban baseball fan who followed Cuban baseball since the 30s, literally in Cuba. So much love to them. And, we hope Cuba gets it together. I was pessimistic, and I told Mike I predicted Panama and the Netherlands get out of that pool. So we'll see what happens. But, let me bring on this young boy because, this guy, I'm really glad this team's being represented because I think they're underrated. But, this young boy, it's kind of like a thorn in my side because he comes on to the last Bomba Live Sports Show, our Super Bowl edition. And he's polite, but he makes sure it's known that Kansas City Chiefs got something for us. And unfortunately, Mike, we lost by only a few points. And I got a very terse text from this young man by 8:30 in the morning after. He didn't give me no space to recover. And of course, he reminds me, I'm also rocking Team Mexico. So here he comes again, our Kansas City Chief correspondent. But today, rocking El Tri, Antonio Charand is back.
That's right.
Brother.
How you guys doing?
Oh,
How you
man,
guys doing?
as humble as ever, this young fella.
In the flesh.
It's in the flesh, But let's bring the Dominican baller back into this conversation. Jorge, let this young man know, your fam got a little history with Mexican baseball as well, brother.
Oh, yes. So my dad finished off his career playing in the Mexican League, won a championship with Los Broncos, who are no longer a team down in Mexico. So much love. It's the only place my mother ever lived outside of the Dominican Republic in the U.S.
Oh, wow.
And she has, she recently passed away, but she has like ground memories. She was always like, I'd want to go back. And this is a woman who did not travel at all.
Oh, wow.
And I'm just blanking on where the Broncos were from. What part of Mexico?
I thought it was Reynosa. I thought it was the north.
Thank you. I have no idea why.
Tamaulipas.
Yes, Los Broncos de Reynosa. They won a league down there. It was the Class D at that point. That's what it was classified as part of the Mexican. So it was actually part of the U.S. minor league system at that point. But it was a fun time.
So Antonio, there's an interesting situation for you because with the Chiefs, you're like the big dog, and you're like the Team USA, Team Dominican Republic situation.
Right.
Team Mexico, a little scrappy, a little more of a Cinderella story. So give us your breakdown. How you feeling about El Tri right now?
Well, it's ironic. I feel like people know us as El Tri for one reason, but if you look at our World Cup success with the national team for soccer, we are called El Tri in my book because we can't make it past 3 World Cup matches. That is why I call us El Tri right there. We haven't made the quarterfinals since 1986, and for the past 7 World Cups, except for this past one, we made it to the round of 16 and got knocked out. So that is why we're called El Tri in that fashion for me. But I feel like the biggest name that pops out is obviously Uriel Urias. He is our MJ. He is our Patrick Mahomes. And, with the connection with Pat Mahomes, the most important position in football is the quarterback. The most important position in baseball is the pitcher. So I feel like we can have that connection there. I feel like another big name too, obviously, is Alex Verdugo. He is, a nice young star. Keep in mind, I feel like people forget how young Julio is. He's only 26 years old. He's been in the league since 2016, 2017. He's a well-seasoned vet at 26 years old already, which I find is crazy and something that we can definitely benefit from. But yeah, we have a couple other good pieces, I think, with Rowdy Tellez and Luis Urias, too, who are Milwaukee Brewer teammates. I feel like kind of having that cohesiveness, right? You're with your teammate already in the league. You're bringing it over to the national team. I feel like that's important as well. And Randy Arozarena, who's actually Cuban, but he's part of the gente now, so he's going to be representing us as well. So I think those are some guys that I can think of really off the top of the dome that can really benefit us.
Antonio, I feel like I should call you Father Antonio because I do have a confession to make. As much as you've been a thorn in my side the last several weeks with this Kansas City. People don't understand. I am surrounded by the kingdom. I get harassing texts from his dad in the middle of galas. I mean, it doesn't stop with these people. I was with Kansas City people yesterday in Atlantic City. It never ends. The kingdom is all encompassing in my life.
We're everywhere, man.
But I have to admit something to you. I have to confession. I really love this team of Mexico. Because first of all, we're going to get into the bats in a second. Always perceived as the weakness of Team Mexico, but I don't think it is. But Mexican baseball, whether it's Southwest Mexican Americans or in Mexico, and Mike, well, pitching has always been their strength, and pitching depth has always been their strength. And this whole tournament is about pitching depth. Mike, there is a Mexican arm coming at you at every direction on that team.
Yeah, I'd be curious your feedback, Antonio, because as Rafael mentioned, it's a short series and no one's gonna pitch complete games. So if Benji Gill can manage Ukiti and Urias, and in the bullpen,
Luis
Alvin
Cessa,
Perez, a
former
veteran,
Yankee, right?
Luis Cessa, all
He did
these
his thing with
guys.
the Yankees back in the day.
And if you recall, Tony, I remember there was a past World Baseball Classic where they got pretty far, and part of the danger that they presented, I think they got to the Final Four, Final 8 at one point. The danger was they had a really good bullpen because they had a bunch of major league arms. They could just throw, they could match up when they needed. And I wonder what your thoughts are what this current roster, am I right to assume that might be a strength, just the amount of decent, MLB caliber arms they have?
Absolutely. And I think the one in particular you're referring to is in 2006. I may not be 100% right there. But yeah, I mean, look, you named a couple guys like Luis Cessa. We also have Giovanni Gallegos too. I feel like he's a really good one that we can rely on as well. I mean, look, all of these teams have MLB talent on their rosters. So, that's something that you got to consider. That's kind of a general thing that all teams kind of have at their disposal. But yeah, if you look at guys like that we have in Taijuan Walker as well, and you named Jose Urquidy already, like these are guys that have experience. These are guys that are on good rosters. Some of them already have World Series experience as well, obviously with Jose with Houston, and Urias obviously with the Dodgers, and I feel like these are guys that can really use that MLB experience in their tenures that they have had in the league, and we can exploit that. So I feel like having the tournament being as short as it is, we're going to be able to try to throw a bunch of guys in one game. It's going to be interesting, like you said, how Gil is going to be able to kind of work around that. But in my perspective, I think all of these guys are going to be nice and fresh, and they're going to be ready to go. So we have that as an advantage as well.
So Ray, I wanted to ask a question, take it to a broader extent. And Antonio, feel free to be like, hey, I can't necessarily represent what it's like in Mexico necessarily, but what do you feel when it comes to like baseball in the Mexican culture, maybe just the Mexican American culture from the US perspective? Like I see you got the Kansas City Chiefs helmet. We talked about that. We know soccer is soccer, right? And how much football has grown worldwide, especially in Mexico. The NFL's got games playing in Mexico. I just talked about, baseball was big in the 60s and 70s, even in Mexico. That's why my dad played there. It was huge. What's it like today from a cultural perspective? I mean, Mexico still does well in the Caribbean Series, by the way. It's not like Mexican baseball has like died off. Let's be clear about that.
And
These
Mexican
players aren't.
Baseball has Mike can tell you an excellent summer league and an excellent winter league.
Exactly.
Yeah, and the summer league. Yeah, and I'll just say for someone who worked at minor league ball for, let's say, the pro baseball community, obviously not everybody gets to the big leagues, but there is that second level of guys that can make at least a working class or a decent living. And Mexico is one of the great leagues to play in, particularly for the Latino players.
So what do you think where does it fall? Is it similar to how it is in the rest of the US? It's us, the diehards that are into it. Where does baseball stand like from a community perspective?
Well, I can definitely touch on it from the Mexican American perspective. I played baseball growing up all the way up through high school. I was a first baseman. But fast pitch softball was something that was huge, specifically growing up in Kansas City. And, Ray, my dad can tell you stories of when he played growing up as well.
Antonio's dad played at Arizona State baseball. So
yeah. So he was, he was someone that grew up playing fast pitch softball as well as baseball. So that was something that, that was really popular within the community. It wasn't soccer, right? Which is kind of a default when you think of Latinos and Mexicans in particular. So yeah, I feel like this is something that, continues to grow. It's something that I feel like is definitely generational, right? Like if you have like a dad or a grandpa that has played, typically you're going to grow up in little league and you're going to work your way up. But no, this is something that definitely I feel like is growing, and something obviously you look at the Southwest, you're okay, like, yeah, there's going to be something popular there. But in the Midwest in particular, in Missouri and Kansas, I think those are definitely areas as well that you have to look at. And a lot of kids love to play. A lot of kids like to carry on that tradition that is brought down from generations within their own families. So absolutely. And my family is a perfect example of that as well.
And I think because of what the dynamic you're talking about, and I think kind of like, in a way, like the Latino community and the Mexican American community be more prominent in our larger society. I think it's given the confidence for the more Mexican American players to be on Mexico this year. So like Rowdy Tellez, Alan Trejo, There's a lot of Verdugo's an Arizona guy. Alex Thomas, who's a big-time prospect, who's going to be the center fielder. Jaron Duran with the Red Sox, who's I believe Californian. So, I think the people are seeing that culture. And, that was obvious with Fernando Mania and like LA Dodger culture, which is really Mexican dominant. If you look at the fan base and who's at the games and who are the real passionate fans. So I'm really hoping.
SoCal,
yeah. And I think you're going to see, Mike, you're the ticket guy here, Open Seat Direct. What do you expect in terms of the crowds? Pool C is in Arizona, featuring USA, Mexico, Colombia, Great Britain, and Canada. So what's the vibe? Are you expecting some big Mexican crowds and some big crowds there in Phoenix this weekend?
Yeah, I would say this tier one of the tournament's probably, the pool in Japan and Miami. Actually, before the Miami pool went on sale, the Dominican Venezuela game sold out. They've already sold out the championship game down there. So there's a lot of excitement. Tier two, no question, is Arizona, because just as you would have the most popular soccer team in America is El Tri, the Mexican national team, from a ticket selling perspective, and even a ratings perspective for many years. Once Mexico plays the U.S. in that pool, that's going to be a tremendous game. There's a lot. There's no question there's going to be good crowds, particularly for that matchup.
Yeah, and it's a bigger stadium, which is going to be interesting.
Yeah.
And let's go around the horn as we wrap up the World Baseball Bomba edition of Bomba Live, the talk show you've been waiting for your whole life. Let's get some predictions. Let's start with you, young fella. I know you're riding a high with your kingdom, but what do you think about El Tri, brother? Is Aztlan baseball going to take over again, or what? Talk to me.
I'm gonna simmer down. I'm coming down from my high from that Super Bowl win, so I'll be a little bit more realistic. But I definitely think we can come out of the pool for sure. I think it's going to be USA and Mexico are going to be the top two. They'll come out, and I feel like that's a realistic take. I'm not going to say we're going to win it all here. So, I definitely think we can make it to the quarterfinals, and we'll see what it goes from there. But I'm giving us at least to get out of the pool. That's what I'm going with.
Mike, give me some predictions, brother. Give me a Final Four. Give me a final. How PR going to do? Talk to me. You're going to be in Puerto Rico, Venezuela this Sunday. So
indeed, I officially have my seats. Man, well, I'll say this just to be a little different, but also there's a track record here. My prediction be Japan wins. When you read about not only Shohei Ohtani, arguably the best player in the world, and Yu Darvish, so two tremendous starters. And oh, by the way, Ohtani hits 30 home runs a year. I mean, what a tremendous player. But out of Nippon, out of the leagues there's always one or two guys that we baseball fans are eventually going to see in free agency in a year or two, going to be stars in a major league roster. And from what I'm reading, there might be 3 or 4 guys like that, that we don't know now, but we will in a few years as Major League Baseball fans.
Some impressive power numbers in that.
And they
Japan
have a track
lineup.
record. They won a championship.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I just think, to be a little different than the rest, I think Japan has a chance to win this whole thing. PR is going to be tough. I want to be optimistic, but it's all going to be about that PR Venezuela game, because if they can sneak that one, then they have a shot. But if they don't, it's going to be tough. It just is. I'll say that I'll just throw in there Japan wins the sucker.
Who they beating in the final, Mike? Who they beating in the final?
Jeez, DR. Let's say I don't even know how the pools will work.
Wow.
But
that would break Jorge's heart to
line
lose to Japan again. Jesus.
Yeah, it'd be good. It'd be good.
Talk to me, Jorge. It's God. The idea of the Dominican Republic winning this whole thing, or any of the Latin American countries win this whole thing in Miami. I mean, it's mouthwatering, brother. It could be exciting.
That's funny. I think Mike stole a little of my thunder in the fact that, and maybe it's just because we didn't have a representative for the Asian teams being Bomba Live, but that Japan is a team we haven't talked about. And the X factor there that I mentioned it a little bit is their players most of their players are in midseason form. The Nippon League has been live and going. They're not in preseason. That's always a factor. So they're going to play well.
Yep.
If you look at the pool they're playing, I've mentioned this before, so I'm a little bit of a broken record on this. They're not going to have to wear their arms out too much. I feel like they're going to get some easy wins at the beginning, and that matters in a short series, not having to blow through your arms. With DR, I think the factor is going to be pressure. I really do. I think it's, at the end of the day, it's going to be pressure. Like, I've seen these guys are very emotional. It's the way Dominicans are. Game gets tight, 3-3. Are we going to be yelling at each other? Are we going to be like, yo, I thought you were going to get that ball. I was going to get that ball. Because there's going to be just a lot of pressure being in Miami and being the favorite and winning it all. And will these guys go at each other rather than supporting each other? That's the X factor. I mean, at the end of the day, I think they're going to win it. But these are the things that will keep me up at night. When you got this much pressure going, that it starts to get to you.
I would say to step in just because, again, the headliner's in an offensive lineup of DR, but you could argue Sandy Alcantara is the best pitcher in baseball. Like, literally can argue that.
I don't think there's much of an argument.
That's what
I would argue that
Christian
Javier would be your next dude who'd be about to take over. Yeah.
Hit the Phillies in the World Series. That guy, my God, he's fantastic.
That's what I'm saying. So in the end, those kind of arms could be just a difference maker when what you're saying other things aren't working out and they just outpitch the other team. That could very well happen too.
I do want to shout. I'm glad you brought it up, Jorge. And look, I mean, there's only so much time in the day. Believe me, we tried. Mike was scouring to find a Nicaraguan correspondent. We down with everybody, and I'm glad we got
Panama. I tried many times to get Panama.
Oh yeah, no, we got a lot of, and Mike knows I'm riding with Panama hard in the Asian pool. But we got a lot of love for it. But look, I was texting one of my Italian homies. I was like, "That's a big win for you." Well, I was throwing some shade because I was like, Mike Piazza being the manager, is that the biggest Mets win of the century? Mets associated victory of the last 25 years? But I digress. But, Israel's got some guys that people don't. I actually am glad you brought it up because I want to shout out Bubby Rosman, who's on Team Israel, a California guy. He's in the Phillies organization, actually pitched an inning for the Phillies this past year. And his dad is a good friend of the show, Charlie Rossman. He might be watching. So we got friends, all kind of connections. We love the Asian culture with baseball. Mike knows I'm a Team Korea guy when it comes to the Asians. I love the way they play ball. They play old school.
KBO,
KBO.
National team KBO.
Yeah, a lot of barbecue and power. I love those guys. And but so I'm glad you brought that up. But yeah, no, they're definitely a factor. I'm gonna say this. I think I was gonna zag. I got a couple predictions. I don't think Puerto Rico's going to get. I just think because we've always overachieved, and I think there's bad juju. We haven't talked about it, Mike. There's bad juju for the way our former Puerto Rico general manager Eduardo Perez the situation was handled with him, with the federation head going over his head to hire Yadier Molina instead of Josue Espada, who he wanted. So I've had a bad taste in my mouth for that for several months. I think just because of the competition, we're not going to get out of the pool. I think we'll play okay, but I just think Venezuela and DR are going to be too tough. I predict and I predict that Mexico will get to the Final Four. I think Mexico's going to do really well in this tournament, but I do predict in the final Venezuela will defeat Japan in the final, and I think Venezuela's finally gonna have some gonna get it together. They're very overdue. I just think they're more complete. I'm not even on the Dominican Republic thing. I just think the little holes are going to hurt them. I really believe there's going to be so many pressure. They're just going to throw guys all over the place over the field. And I think the defense, and I think Gary Sanchez defense is going to kill you in terms of man. So I think some of these defensive holes are going to hurt you. And I think for USA, their pitching's just okay. I mean, there's 4 or 5 pitching staffs that are just as good, if not better, in this tournament. So I just think they're the lack of dynamic pitching when they face those real tough lineups is going to hurt them. So look out for MJ Melendez, for my Puerto Rican fans. Florida Boricua, his dad is the head coach of Florida National University. One of your Kansas City Royals, Antonio. I mean, this guy has the best power profile that Puerto Ricans have produced since Carlos Delgado. So look out for this kid. If he can hit some home runs early in the tournament and makes people pitch to Lindor and Baez, we have a shot, but we'll see how it goes. Any final word? We'll start with you, Antonio. Any final word, shout outs? No more Chiefs talk, but anything around baseball or anything else on your sporting mind, brother?
Well, hey, look out for the Royals, man. I mean, if you were to just look at our spring training
record,
I
can support.
You would think we're winning the World Series.
MJ Melendez.
It's crazy. MJ Melendez. I mean, and you guys gave a shout out to
he's a stud.
He's great. I'm glad you guys gave Salvi a shout out in that last segment talking about Venezuela.
We've hung out with Salvi once or twice in the KC scene. He's a good guy.
Yeah, no, he's dope. I love that guy. But yeah, just check out KC Sports, man, where people always want to look at New York and LA, the big cities. But hey, KC, we're a city of champions too, man. We know what it's like to win a couple championships in some different sports areas. So, and
just down the road, your Rock Chalk Jayhawks are going to be a big factor in March Madness.
So I'm actually not a KU fan. I'm an MU fan. MIZZOU.
The Tigers. I like that. We're down with that back in the days.
Show me. All right.
Oh, yeah. Doug Smith. Remember him back in the days, George? We used to rock with Mizzou for a minute back in those days. Yeah. That's what's up. I like that. Well, they're a factor. The Kansas City's a factor. Mike, talk to me, brother. I know you're excited. I know you're going to start watching some games out in Japan right now. And wow, you're going down with the fam. It's going to be very special.
No, looking forward to it. I'll be at Sunday's game, like I said. So I'll share on social media a couple of pictures, and I guess the vibe. I'll probably see some Planettos walking.
Mucha salsa. You're going to see a lot at the Puerto Rico Venezuela game. Miami. We're going to just leave it at that. So there's going to be a lot of walking around the concourse in your future, I can tell. No doubt about it. So enjoy it, brother. Safe travel to the family. It's going to be very special. Ori, you get the last word, brother. This is going to be a lot of fun.
This is exciting.
It's going to be a lot of fun.
It's going to be a lot of fun. I think the other thing is I'm actually excited to see the new rules. They're not going to be in the WBC. We started talking about it for a minute. I'm hoping like the excitement of the WBC, maybe some of the rules, it could kind of turn, keep going in the right place for MLB. Because this year is going to be a challenging year. Like the whole, and this is like, going real off on a tangent, but that whole, when some of the regional sports networks going under, like MLB's got some serious stuff to worry about. So they got to get this momentum going in the WBC. Hope these rules work out to keep the excitement on it, because the money train, when it comes to like the video, the money train from cable, that's starting to come down. So they got to really figure it out to keep this momentum and keep the sport going. And like a lot of us said, all of us are here because it's just a generational thing. Like we want baseball to win. Like even more than I'm a Yankee fan, I'm a baseball fan. And like to have this sport keep going. It's sad that I'm a season ticket holder for football and not for baseball. And then my kids probably know more about like the NFL than they do baseball. And we got to do what we can to keep it going. So that's definitely, I hope this works out well and we keep that momentum going.
That is so well said, Jorge. I said that in a recent rant of mine that, when you're a baseball person, it's more than just being a fan. We're stewards of this great game. And there's so many cultural things that tie us to the sport and generational, cultural, so many things. So it's important. I want to shout out, speaking of people that are keep it real with baseball, before we let you go, people have been following and chatting throughout the night. Monty Perez, our homie's been supporting us in the chat. Great sports guy. Great to see you collaborating with him, Antonio. Enrique Charon, I don't know if you know this character, Antonio, but another suave guy, that Guadalajara, who's got family that played in the Mexican Soccer League as well. So MJ Melendez and Salvi Perez repping the Royals. I believe that. And I really want to shout out, I'm so glad she chimed in. Una de la prima de mi esposa en Puerto Rico is Manuel Roman Cardona, big baseball mom, representing for Puerto Rico. She's very involved in her local Little League with her children, and their family, Mike, is real tight with Noel Cuevas, former major leaguer Boricua from the Kansas City Royals. So that's one of their social buddies in the northern part of the island. Her dad, I'm sure, will be at the Puerto Rico DR game. He goes to all the big games in the World Baseball Classic. So much respect to Luis Manuel and Mike Roman and that whole crew. Well, guys, enjoy the games. Who knows? Maybe next week, depending on the matchups in the quarterfinals and semis, maybe we'll do another one. But I want to thank everyone, Fernando Javier, who joined us earlier, as well as Cheats and Julia Rivera and Alex Sepulveda. Thanks for all, and of course our co-host and Antonio. Thank you all so much, and enjoy the WBC. Bomba.
Thank you, brother.